the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say it's even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene. Days go by, it's the bigger love of the family.
Yeah, let's give it up for that guy. That took a lot of courage to wake up and to be him every day and do all those things single every day. But I know that's some of us here. But welcome to the project. Like Cal said, I'm Abbey. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you tonight. And we're kicking off our Hopeless Romantic series. It's February. It's Love Month. Maybe you were feeling different ways about that. I don't know. But, we really believe here at the project it's important to talk about things that are relevant to young adults. And we know that relationships are super relevant to us in this stage of life. And so that's why we're talking about it. We also just want to have a biblical framework of relationships and to talk about what the Bible has to say about them. And so today's message is specifically for all the singles in the room. If you're not, though, don't worry. I still believe that God will speak to you tonight. But I'm single, and I have been for a while. Sorry, that wasn't supposed to be a complaint, I promise. It also wasn't supposed to be a public service announcement. I started listening to this one pastor, actually my roommate and I did, and she's from Australia. She's in her early 30s. She's really cool, really fiery. I've loved listening to her. And she starts every sermon, especially when she's going to different places, different churches, not her home church. She always starts with in her Australian accent, she's like, "I'm single and I'm ready to mingle." And I'm like, that's bold, girl. I'll never do that, but that is bold. I know what it's like to feel rejection and heartbreak, and I'm very familiar with that weird feeling of maybe jealousy or FOMO, when you're scrolling through Instagram during engagement season or wedding season, which is just every season. Let's be honest, these people do not give us a break. You know who you are. Please stop. Or I guess I could turn off my notifications or delete Instagram, so maybe that's on me. But I know what it's like to live in that tension of enjoying the freedom of singleness, but also wondering in the back of my mind, will I ever be in a relationship? And maybe you relate to that tension too, or maybe you just straight up hate being single, you hate being in the state of life, or maybe you're absolutely thriving and relationships, marriage, dating, that's the last thing on your mind. But wherever you're at tonight, my hope is to encourage you, to challenge you, and to show you what the Bible has to say about being single. So let's not waste any time. Let's just dive right into it. The question that maybe you've asked about other people or maybe yourself, why are you still single? Why are they still single? Now, I have a fundamental issue with this question, even though it's basically the title of this message. First, I think it can imply that there is something inherently wrong with singleness, that it's second best. And, here's the thing, even though it looks different on both sides, I think that, we see that culture, secular culture, and also Christian culture places this huge emphasis on relationships. On the one side, we have culture that really emphasizes romantic love and finding your soulmate and flings and sex and how terrible it is to be alone. And then on the other side, and we understand that idea. We start to receive that idea as kids when we start watching Disney movies and we start reading fairy tales, and it just continues to grow and grow as we continue to consume rom-coms and different shows. And so you have that on one side, and then we look at Christian culture, and marriage is very highly regarded, and rightfully so, because it is a good thing, and it's something that God ordained. But I don't know about you guys, maybe some of you in the room, I know some of you go to Bible college. I remember a couple months before I moved to Edmonton and started going to Bible college, I told someone at my home church, I'm going to Bible college, and they're like, oh, bridal college? And I was like, what? I don't know, my family, I have a lot of older cousins that aren't married, I have older brothers. who aren't married, so I've never really felt that like weird family pressure to like, oh, like you need to be in a relationship. And so getting into Bible college culture, and if like you haven't experienced this, it's probably for the best. You're like, it's fine, but people move fast. Okay, like they say, you want to see some real speed? It's like day one, people are already paired up, and by second semester, they're married. By fourth year, they have 3 kids. It's the Bible college crew is laughing because it's true. They're laughing because it's true. And so really, I guess in Christian circles, a lot of the times, our 20s, they're kind of seen as this time where that's what we do. We settle down, and we get married, and we have kids. And so it takes it to this whole nother level. And I'm not saying that, getting married young or having a family young is a bad thing. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to move quickly, but, it's just simply not the case for everybody. And ultimately, both of these sides do point to one thing, that we were meant to be in relationship with others. And so if we go back to the first book of the Bible, it's called Genesis. We read the creation story, and that includes the creation of the first human, who's a man named Adam. And so while Adam is working on his own in this garden that God gave him to care for, God says this in Genesis 2:18. He says, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper who is just right for him." So here, God recognizes Adam's loneliness and creates his wife, Eve, who meets that need for companionship and connection. So to feel a longing for companionship, for a relationship, for love is a human thing. And it's not cheesy to want a partner, to be in a relationship. You don't have to be embarrassed about it. In fact, you know what, guys, I just feel like we really need to be honest in this room today. I feel like I'm really laying out a lot on the table, so maybe you'll reciprocate. But if you're in the room tonight, you're single and you're hoping one day to get married, put your hand up. Just put it up. Yeah. Nothing to be ashamed. Nice and high. No, keep them up. Guys, nothing. I just wanted anyone on this side. Okay. No, guys, keep them up. Keep them higher, okay? Yeah, stand if you want, sure. Guys, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Keep them up, guys. Okay, now what I want you to do is look around. Look around the room. See if you make eye contact with someone. And I'm just saying, if this is how you meet someone, I am doing the toast at your wedding, okay? Okay, see what I did there? I got all of you. Maybe you're here today and you're tired of being single. You long to be in a relationship, but it just hasn't quite worked out yet. This past week we had a sticker up on our Instagram, and we just kind of asked people to share some questions or struggles they had when it came to all things love. And there were a lot of people expressing how they wanted to have a boyfriend or girlfriend or to get married one day, but they just kind of wondered if they'd be single forever because it just hasn't happened yet. And I get that feeling, and I share in it. Most of my close friends that I had in college, they're mostly all married, and I think if anything, like, the algorithm knows. The algorithm knows everything. That's a sermon for a whole other day, but it knows. It knows that I want to be in a relationship because my whole Explore page on Instagram is it's like cool wedding receptions that are captured on film, and I'm a sucker for that. As soon as I see one, I'm like, I have to keep swiping, and then I refresh, and they're like, here's 10 more. It's a vicious cycle. It's that, and then like, cool YEG dates. And I'm like, I'm not going on any in the near future, but like, let's just see what's there. And then it's just a vicious cycle. And so I get that feeling. And I think it's harder as you get into your mid to late 20s. You're less likely to be in environments where there's a lot of single people. It's different like when you're on a university campus, for example. And maybe church is really the only spot where it would make sense for you to meet somebody, but you just haven't really clicked with anyone yet. And it's not super likely that all of us will just happen to like meet the love of our lives like at a coffee shop or bump into them while we're walking down the street. I haven't had that hallmark moment, but I've been very close, and I will share that story with you now. So in June, I got into a car accident. It sucked. It kind of ruined my life, but it's fine. No one was hurt. It's all good, but it's raining, whatever. That could have kind of been, Now, may not pan out like that for everyone, so like don't come out. But if we read Psalm 37:4, it says this: "Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires." So if you're being intentional about growing in your faith and spending time with God, and you have a desire for a partner, then that could be a gift that's coming your way. And not in like a magic, like genie type of way, but like the more you grow closer to God, the more his desires for your life and your desires for your life will be in alignment. And so this is a statement I want to address today, why you're still single. I do believe I have the answer, so you may want to start taking notes. I know, just statistically, I know a lot of you are single in this room, and I will solve singleness in the next 25 to 30 minutes. Kidding, it's not a problem to be solved. But before I give it to you, I do want to eliminate 2 answers to this question that aren't true, but maybe like me, you found yourself believing them. So we're gonna go into the first one. You're not single because God has it out for you. As I said before, we celebrate love and relationships a lot in secular and in Christian culture. The wedding industry is worth billions of dollars in this country. It's like you find the love of your life, you get married, it's so great, you're so happy, and then we all have to buy you presents, even though you now have you have double the income now. How does that make sense? You find the love of your life, I'm still alone, and now I have to buy you a blender? All my married friends are like, we hate her now. Oh, well. They know how I really feel. Kidding. I just want to know that, like, when is there going to be, like, a time in my life as a single person where I could send a registry to all my family and friends and be like, buy these things for me? I just don't see it happening like that. There's no singleness celebration on that same level. And again, this societal implication that there is something wrong with being single, because it might imply loneliness or not being desirable, that can cause us to feel like being single is like God's sneaky little way of punishing us. Even in the times of the Old Testament of the Bible, singleness was perceived by many people to be a curse. And that's because of the weight that was placed on having families and having children. God has this initial command to the first couple to be fruitful and to multiply. And you can't really do that if you're single. And so if someone was single, it was kind of viewed as a dead end because their lineage, they wouldn't have a lineage because they wouldn't have kids. In Jewish culture, they believed that there was something seriously wrong with those who were unmarried, and to some, it was even sinful. So with this context, it's really interesting to see how the narrative about singleness is completely flipped in the New Testament. We can see how Jesus challenges the cultural perception of being single. First of all, Jesus was single. Crazy. It really annoys me, like especially in church contexts, when single people are treated less than, because literally Jesus was single. And so while singleness previously prevented people from following God's command to be fruitful and to multiply, Jesus truly does change everything. In Matthew 19, Jesus affirms that singleness is a good thing. It's a good thing for those to whom it has been given. And later on, a guy named Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament and was a major catalyst in the establishment of the early church, he was also single. He says that singleness is a gift and encourages people to be single. This is what he says in 1 Corinthians 7:7. It says, "But I wish everyone were single, just as I am. Yet each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another." And then he goes on to say this later on in the chapter. "I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. In the same way, a woman who is no longer married or has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and spirit. But a married woman has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. I'm saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best, with as few distractions as possible." Here we can see there are some advantages to being single, especially in light of pursuing God's call for us. First of all, there's a lot of freedom that comes with being single. You don't have to worry about the stress of trying to coordinate a schedule with a spouse or with kids and trying to provide and serve them. And second, Paul makes the argument that those who are unmarried can spend more time serving the Lord and growing in faith with less distractions because their responsibilities aren't divided. And this is an advantage I've seen in my own life. Before I worked at the Project, I was a youth pastor at another church, and so we had youth Friday nights that went super late most of the time. And then we had a drop-in center that ran 4 nights a week. So I was able to honestly have it was the coolest job ever. Just eating pizza, playing video games with kids all the time, hearing about all their problems, helping them navigate through them. And I don't know if I would have been able to do that same thing had I had a spouse and a family to care for. And there were even times where I had students who were in the hospital and I was able to be like, oh, you know what? Drop-in's over. I don't really have to go home right now. Let me just jet over to the hospital and be with this person. And so it was just really cool to be in a time where I was able to invest such a large part of myself into this ministry that I really, really cared about. And even, on a more fun note, one of my friends a couple weeks ago, she texted me, it's 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, and she's like, let's go see Avatar. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. Yes, I'm in. And so we went at 8 o'clock, and I got home at 12, and I had to be at work early the next day. But it was great, and I didn't have to ask anyone's permission. I just went off, and it was awesome. And so there can be more flexibility if you have drastic life changes as well. If you're changing jobs or you want to move somewhere, you want to change careers, starting school in a different program, whatever that looks like, it's a lot easier to navigate single. So both marriage and singleness are gifts from God, even though sometimes being single can feel like a gift that you didn't really want and you're hoping you can return for store credit. But I would argue that there's married people out there who probably feel the same way, as they suffer through a dysfunctional relationship. If you see this stage of life as a punishment, then I guarantee you will definitely be miserable. But our perspective can start to shift when we begin to realize that there's truly beauty and freedom in singleness that you can really only experience in this context. So that's the first reason why, that's not the reason why you're still single. But here's the second myth that I want to address. You're not still single because you're unlovable. And I want to be abundantly clear in saying that this is the biggest lie of all time. But yet, I think it's a sentiment that can grip us so deeply. When we scroll past a couple photo or go to a wedding without a +1 or have to navigate the awkward, so have you found anyone yet, at a family dinner. And maybe, it's not something that we're super vocal about all the time. Maybe it's a fear that looms inside of us, but it makes itself known when it's just us and our thoughts. This lie that we aren't worthy of love, that no one would ever want us. And to be completely honest with you guys, that's definitely a part of my story. As a kid, and it's not like I lose sleep over these stories, but it's like when your kindergarten crush decides that no, they don't like you. When I was in the 6th grade, my little 6th grade boyfriend had his friend break up with me for him. Does that make sense? So someone else who is not the boy broke up with me like a proxy, like a weird middleman at recess. So, trauma's starting early for an 11-year-old. And moving into high school, where I was into guys that would just lead me on and date all my friends basically. And then as an adult, experiencing heartbreak after a long-term relationship ended. And again, it's not like especially those smaller ones, it's not like I lose sleep over those things, but over time, when you experience rejection after rejection after rejection, it's kind of easy to just kind of grab onto that and assume, why would anyone want me? That person didn't, that person didn't, that person didn't, and that person didn't. And now I feel like I'm at this point where I'm very guarded because I'm scared that if a potential partner, they saw me for who I really am, flaws and baggage and imperfections and all, they would reject me just like every other guy in my life. And maybe you can relate to that. But what I'm so, so grateful for is a God who knows everything about me, everything about you, even the sins and the hurts and the fears and the weakness, even the things that we hide from those closest to us, the good, the bad and the ugly. He sees all of it, and he will never reject us. He will never reject you. Not only that, but he loves you. He delights in you so deeply. Now, the word love in English is kind of not the best because it has a really wide range. Like I could say, I love my mom and I love tacos. And immediately, you know those are two different things. They definitely are. But the Greeks, they had it together because they have a bunch of different words to describe love. And so I want to focus on 4 of them today. So there's storge, which is love between a family. There's philia, which is love between friends. There's eros, which is love between a couple. And then there's agape, which is the unconditional love of God. And the reason why I bring this up is because I want to focus in on that agape love, the love that God has for humanity. This is a love that doesn't prioritize itself. It's actually more concerned for the greater good of the other person. It's not just a mere result of emotions or feelings or familiarity or attraction. It's not just a cute, lovey-dovey Instagram post and the final scene of a rom-com. It goes so much deeper than that. Agape is a sacrificial love. It's a conscious choice, even when it's hard. And ultimately, it's the most authentic and fulfilling love that there is. And this is the love that God has for each of us. One of the most well-known Bible verses, maybe you know it, it's John 3:16, and this is what it said. For this is how God loves the world. He gave his one and only Son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. And really, this is what Christianity is all about. That even though the sin of that first human, Adam, who we talked about earlier, even though that his sin separated us from God still loved us and desired so strongly to be in relationship with humanity. But the only way that the sins and mistakes of humanity could be paid was through the sacrifice of someone blameless, someone who had never sinned. And that's where Jesus comes in. He sacrifices his rights and comforts to endure the pain of an excruciating death on a cross. And because he paid the debt for humanity, we are now able to have a personal relationship with God. That's real, enduring love. That's a love that no human, even a wife or a husband, even with the best of intentions, will ever be able to fully emulate. Okay, so now that we have those 2 myths out of the way, it's the moment you've been waiting for, the real reason why you're still single. So let me just preface that here at The Project, we believe that God is omniscient, which means that he is all-knowing. And that means, if he knows one day if we'll get married and to whom. So therefore, God has prepared the way. Now he's preparing you. God has prepared the way. Now he's preparing you. He's already worked out all of the details for every aspect of your futures. But now it's just a matter of getting us there. What I'm not saying is that those who are married have some higher level of character or like a Christian prestige, and that that's the reason why they're with someone and that you're not. Married people aren't perfect and single people aren't perfect. Both marriage and singleness are gifts of God's grace. And I'm not trying to be annoying with this one either. I don't know if you've heard this, but just wait on God, just pray. And when you're not even looking, he'll just plop someone right in front of you. Can we just as the project, never say that again, please, because we all collectively hate it. Here's what I want to challenge. I want to challenge that whole idea of waiting on God. Waiting on God, it doesn't have to be this passive thing. If someone was going into, they wanted to go into a specific career or a specific school and they were talking to you about it, if it was a friend or something, you'd probably give them some practical advice or suggestions oh, hey, you should check out this school. I know someone who's in that field. You should contact them. I can be a reference. You'd probably give them a lot of practical advice. So why don't we do that with relationships and dating? One of my favorite authors. She's a counselor, and she has a lot of really great content about dating and love and relationships. And this is what she says. She says, waiting on God is a posture of trust, not a posture of passivity. Waiting on God is not a posture. Waiting on God is a posture of trust, not a posture of passivity. So we don't just have to just sit on our thumbs, waiting at home, expecting that the love of our life will just knock on the door. If that happens for you, let me know. But I just don't see that happening for all of us here. So the question then is, how do you prepare? Number one is to get healthy. Marriage and relationships, guys, they will not fix your issues. If anything, they will just amplify them. So identify the areas in your life that need to be improved and work on them. You'll never fully arrive, but you can save yourself and your future partner a lot of pain by being intentional with this practice. For me, it's included like a journey with therapy. One thing that I'm really bad at is conflict resolution, which conflict happens a lot in relationships. So that's something that I'm actively working on. As I kind of just previously shared, I have a lot of trouble trusting people. So that's something that I'm working through. Having mentors, people in my life who I see their marriages and I want to emulate that one day, talking to them, asking them questions, So whatever that is for you, whether it's pride or insecurity or an addiction or time management, whatever it is, identify what those things are and continue to work intentionally on them. And you can also work through, your spiritual health. Also extremely important. Marriage is more than just a union of two people. In Christianity, we believe it's about cultivating a partnership with someone where you are helping each other navigate the purposes God has for each of you. And so it's a lot easier to know what you're looking for if you have an idea of your purpose. And so for me, for example, I know that I want to be in ministry and I want to continue doing stuff like this. So it would be completely out of the question to be with someone who didn't like church or didn't like God, whatever it is. So it's easy to kind of filter those things out if you know what you want to do for with your life, and God has revealed that to you. So this is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. So spend time with God so that he can help you to discern. And another thing that you can do is pray, which shouldn't be your last resort. It should just be something that you're constantly doing, constantly seeking the Lord and what he wants you to do. And so this is the prayer that I pray. I don't have a slide for it, but maybe I'll post it on Instagram or something. But this is a prayer that I pray. So a little freebie for you. But when I'm thinking about my future spouse, this is what I'm praying. Reveal the person who will help me flourish in my journey as I pursue the plans and purpose you have for my life. Say it one more time, but I will put it somewhere. But reveal the person who will help me flourish in my journey as I pursue the plans and purpose you have for my life. And again, if you're feeling discontent and dissatisfied being single, then keep praying, keep asking. Another way that you can prepare is by getting out there, you guys. No, you're not all going to get in car accidents and meet the love of your life that way. It's not going to happen, okay? Meet new people at the project. Seriously, there's so many people here. If you haven't already, consider joining a small group. Even Pro Sports is tomorrow. I'm just saying. If you're into athletes, that could be a place to go. But not only that, invest in healthy friendships as well. Let friends and family know that you're interested in being set up on a date. See what happens. Consider going on a casual coffee date with people that are maybe outside of your usual type. A coffee date also doesn't mean marriage. I know, crazy. Consider online dating, even if that's something that you haven't yet. Be careful, but it's definitely an avenue that you could consider. And the last way that you can prepare that I want to share today is to move towards contentment. I know that being single is hard. It's hard to desire something and to not have it. It's hard to see your circle of friends moving towards marriage and having families while you feel like you maybe don't have any prospects at all. It's hard to see exes move on without you. And I don't want to minimize that pain because even though I stand by everything I've just shared, I do my best to live it out, I still don't feel perfectly content in my singleness either. But friends, I do want to remind you of how loved and cherished and valued you are. You're not just by God, but by your family, by your friends, by us here at the Project. And when we start to believe the lies that God is punishing us by keeping us single, or that we are unlovable, we will settle. Fear will cause us to make decisions in relationships that are not good for us. It can cause us to compromise our values. Here's the thing, you can still be in a relationship and feel lonely and miserable, because a relationship will not change your heart posture. One writer says, if we're single and all we can see is our longing for a spouse rather than eternity with Christ, we'll load down a God-sent spouse with the crushing weight of needy expectation, or become a resentful or cynical or broken-hearted single. A discontented single person will become a discontented spouse, and then a discontented parent. And I used to think that being single was the worst thing ever, after going through a really hard breakup, and then having a bunch of my friends get married in the same year. It was really hard. I remember, I know I've brought this up before, but there were so many nights, this was before I was working at the Project, but I would just come completely just sad and just at my wit's end, and I would sit in the back there, and I wouldn't talk to anyone because it was COVID, and we all had masks on, but I didn't want to talk to anyone anyways. I would just sit there, and I would cry, and I would leave, and I just felt so hopeless and so sad. And so, I hope you guys know that I really am speaking out of experience, and that it has taken me a long time to get to this place to be you know what, I am really comfortable in my skin. I am really comfortable in the place where God has put me right now. And I think of my life, 2-3 years later, and genuinely how much I love it. How much I love being at the Project, getting to pastor and serve you guys. It's the best. I think I'm at a point now where I really love being single, actually. I love being able to hang out with my friends at late hours of the night, and order pizza whenever I want, not having to worry about the stress of other people's schedules. I love it a lot, and I hope one day, if I do get married, I hope that happens. I know that I'll be able to look back on these years and be man, I really do miss that, So don't let your contentedness and your trust in God be only reliant on whether or not God gives you what you want. If you do that, I can guarantee you will be disappointed. Trust that God loves you, that He is for you. He already sees the path that He has laid out for you, whether that means marriage down the line or family or not. So take it one day at a time, and He will lead you in the way that you need to go. And I just want to, just specifically talk to those of you who maybe you're here tonight and your heart is just broken, whether that's from the loss of a relationship or just loneliness, whatever that is. And it makes me emotional, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that's you tonight and you don't feel there's hope. I just really want you to know. I really want you to know that there is. And I remember being in that place in my life where I just felt absolutely broken, that I'd never find love again, that I would always be sad. And I remember a pastor, he read this psalm, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and this is what it says. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. And so if that's you tonight, maybe your spirit is feeling a little crushed. Maybe you're down. I just want you to know that God, you don't even you don't even need to ask for Him to be there. He's already there. He's already there with you. And I promise you that if you take the time to open your heart and to be honest about where you're at, that He will fill in that gap, that He will heal your heart, that it might take time, but He will. And so when I think about, love in the Bible and God's love for us, and as I was preparing for this message, I really felt really the pinnacle, like I said, of Christianity. It's Jesus' death on the cross for us. And so the way that we remember that here at the Project and through many Christian traditions is through an act called communion. And so if you're not familiar, I'll explain. Basically, it's a time where we take a piece of bread, which symbolizes Jesus' body, and juice, which represents his blood that was shed for us. And it's not some like weird thing. We just kind of see them as these symbols, and it's a reflection of the last meal that Jesus had with his disciples before he died. And really, his death was the greatest gift of love that there ever was. And so that's why I want us to partake in that tonight. And so if you're here and maybe you're not Christian or you're not comfortable, there's absolutely no pressure to partake. But if you would like to, we just have some bowls to my right and left. And there's some gluten-free crackers as well. So you can, as the worship continues, you can just take one and just sit at your spot. And just reflect. And this is what I want you to reflect on. Just reflect on where you're at. You know, be honest with God, because he already knows. He already knows where you're at. But be reminded of his love for you, that he loved you so much that he was willing to die for you. You know, maybe you need to ask him to reveal the ways that you need to prepare. You know, maybe you need to take some time and pray for your future spouse. Maybe you just need to surrender your love life to him. Maybe you've just been like trying to take things in your own hands and you've just been hurt over and over and over again. And maybe, again, you're here and maybe you're not single. Maybe there's another area in your life that you know you need to surrender to him. But I just invite you to, once you grab communion, just to sit, to reflect for a little bit. You can take it on your own time. You can eat the bread and drink the juice. And then when you're ready, I just invite you to stand and worship. So yeah, let me just pray for us and then we'll get rolling. Jesus, I thank you for your love. For your love that we don't have to earn. For your love that is unconditional. No matter what we've done, no matter what we will do, Lord, it stays the same. And Lord, I thank you for the gift of relationship and how beautiful it is to be seen and known by somebody. And for those of us in the room who, you know, we want that for our lives one day, Father, I pray that we would trust you, that we wouldn't try and take things in our own hands, that we wouldn't get discouraged, that we wouldn't believe the lies of the enemy, that we would know that no matter what our relationship status is, that we are truly and fully and wholly and perfectly loved by you, Father. I pray that in whatever season we're at, that we would be content, Lord, and that you would show yourself faithful. And that, you know, maybe one day we can look back and see just the crazy path that you had for us to get to that potential partner, Father. So we thank you and we praise you. Amen. Amen. Feel free to stand and grab communion.